back in our retirement train station. And across the road here. It always has an effect on you. You got a bloody nuisance. Can't do much about it. Hill here, and down the other side, obviously. Good enough. Probably worry about the other side. Thanks, mate. Watch is just buzzing for, I don't know what that was. I thought it might have been 6 kilometres, which is probably being a bit of wishful thinking. Apologies for the heavy breathing. It's a pretty steep hill. I hope I can go along here. An alleyway just here. There's Wickham Park, next to Wickham, very popular bloke, walks and parks named after him. And here I am. Back where I started from, at 584. Not sure how much of this you can see. Time in the zone. Yeah, I thought so. Details. 584, time 39:39, pace 6:47, heartbeat maximum 204, so I suppose that's a good thing. Have a look at some lap times here. 6:30, 6:31, 6:06, 6:41, 7:26, 6:19. Pretty lousy effort. I excuse it by saying I didn't know where I was going. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope there's some useful footage in all of this. Thank you, bye. Yeah, I didn't know where I was going. I went all the wrong places. No markers anywhere to tell you where to go. Yeah, I'll mark tomorrow, but nowhere to go.
The past, present, and future walk into a bar. It was tense.
Thank you.
Got no time for these jokes. I've been spending all morning running around trying to catch some fog failing. Missed. We've got some weather to talk about.
Anywhere I was supposed to go. Supposed to go up to Willoughby Leisure Centre somewhere or around that area, but no markers on the path to tell you where to go. So. Yes, they say there are marshals and markers everywhere.
Wet weather along the coast of New South Wales and further north as well. Some showers expected for parts of Queensland with onshore winds there. But the next thing is really what we're keeping an eye out on, and that's the next front coming into the southwest. That approaches tonight and into tomorrow. Once it gets into the east, though, we talk about some widespread falls for much of eastern Australia, with a decent signal landing right the way back through into WA. We'll be watching that closely. Some very welcome wet weather. Quite dry, luckily for the east, not huge totals along the coast where areas have been flooded. For today, almost nothing in terms of rainfall for Queensland, just some of those showers for the tropical coast north of Hingham. It's getting to 22 in Brisbane. We've got showers east of the Divide in New South Wales. That includes New Sydney, 18. Everywhere else is clear, including Canberra, 16 there. Showers still isolated though for the south and the west of Victoria. They're drying up though. Melbourne's just looking for morning falls. 15 will be the top. We've got light showers also drying up in Tasmania, mostly just for the west and the far south. None for Hobart, clear at 15 for you. South Australia, some wet weather still for the southeast, but again, fairly isolated, mostly just this morning. It's getting to 16 with a clear day for Adelaide. Meanwhile, over in the west, a fine day until some of those light coastal showers develop with the front coming in for the southwest coast between about Margaret River and Walpole. Perth, that means the sunny day for you, 21 is the maximum. And then up north, clear skies, a bit of gusty wind around Steph, but it's beautiful, sunny 33.
Thanks, Nate. Still ahead on the program this morning, the Gympie Music Muster is back. Campers are getting ready to party after a 2-year break as the beloved Music Fest returns to celebrate its belated 40th anniversary. That's all coming up, but first here's Michael with the latest news.
Thanks, Steph. New South Wales Police have seized a further ton of ice from cargo containers that arrived in Port Botany in what is being hailed as the largest seizure of the drug ever recorded in Australia. Border Force officers discovered the drugs concealed inside marble stone in containers that arrived last week. The same method used to conceal nearly 750 kilograms of ice seized last month. Altogether, police say the drugs have a potential street value of more than $1.6 billion. In breaking news this morning, a redacted affidavit outlining the reasons behind the FBI raid of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home will be released within the next 24 hours. A federal judge agreed that some portions of the document that would reveal the identities of witnesses and law enforcement agencies, as well as the strategy, scope and direction of the investigation, could stay under wraps. Robo-debt victims are hoping for justice
when we raised these issues in Parliament, the government brushed us off. They never answered. Did they think the scheme was unlawful?
Australia has lobbied senior counter-terrorism officials in Indonesia to try to stop or delay the release of convicted Bali bomb maker Umar Patek. Here's the ABC's Indonesia correspondent Anne Barker from a Tau News Surabaya.
This is the Porong jail at Sidoarjo in East Java, where Umar Patek has spent most of his years in jail. He's already been approved for parole, but authorities in Jakarta are still finalising the last bit of paperwork. The jail governor has been summoned to Jakarta to discuss his imminent release. But now that seems to have been complicated or at least delayed by lobbying from Australia to keep him here. Officials, including Australia's counter-terrorism ambassador, have made direct representations to Indonesia's foreign ministry and its own counter-terrorism agency to reinforce the message last week from Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese that Umar Patek is abhorrent and doesn't deserve early release. It's only 10 years since Patek, the most senior Bali bomb maker, was sentenced to 20 years jail. Australian victims and families are outraged that he could spend less time in jail than lesser criminals like drug traffickers. But prison authorities here say Umar Patek has been rehabilitated and de-radicalised, that he could play a positive role to help de-radicalise other hardline Islamists, and they say he's been a model prisoner who's had remissions for good behaviour and is entitled to parole. We've sought an interview with Umar Patek and his wife, who works at the jail selling rice. He sent this letter to media, including the ABC, saying he wants to wait till his release is finalised. But for now, we're told he won't be released this week. It's unlikely to be over the weekend, and it could be delayed for days longer or even weeks.
Anne Barker there in Indonesia. Now, it's been another busy week in politics with an inquiry into the former Prime Minister's secret ministries, a royal commission into the robo-debt saga, and a Jobs and Skills Summit looming on the horizon. Joining us to share his insight on all of these things is Insider's host David Spears. Thanks for coming in, David.
Hey, David.
Well, first of all, we'll start with this promised inquiry from the Prime Minister about the former PM's secret ministries. Just how will this inquiry look, do you think, and will it compel Scott Morrison to give evidence?
Well, Steph, we don't know yet. It was a little surprising this week that the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, didn't have those details even by the end of the week ready to go. They're still grappling with this, and you get the sense that there are some difficult areas here for the government to settle on. Should this inquiry compel witnesses like Scott Morrison, and what sort of precedent does that then set? And secondly, should it also look into the role of the Governor-General and his office in this? And I think they'll be pretty cautious on that front as well. So that, they've got to tread a little carefully here in framing this new inquiry. We know the Solicitor General's advice that was released earlier in the week showed that Scott Morrison didn't break any law, but did act to fundamentally undermine, what he did was fundamentally undermining responsible government with abuse of the Solicitor General, who also put forward several options to fix the problem to ensure it never happens again. That when someone's signed into a ministry, Parliament, the people, we all know that it's happened. So, we know what needs to happen to fix this. What's an inquiry going to do? Well, it would presumably shine a bit more of a light on who knew what in the Prime Minister's office, in the Prime Minister's department, but potentially in the Governor-General's office as well. So, look, fair enough. It would be very interesting to know all of that. Transparency matters with all of this, but you can see some sensitivities there for the government and how it frames this inquiry.
Let's go to the other big inquiry. The Royal Commission report yesterday proposed that the government on record was an election promise, and again, questions over whether Scott Morrison and other relevant portfolio
they've given it a fairly prompt reporting date of April. It's going to cost $30 million. So there will be some concern that Labor's again focused too much on the past here, that it should be focused on the future. But you can sort of see with this one that there is still a need for answers for those questions.
Absolutely, and also, even though they got repaid the debts, there's still the question as to whether or not they get any sort of compensation for pain and suffering, because we've heard some of those really harrowing stories as well.
Yeah, and there's the potential here for that further compensation potentially through this process. Look, the coalition that are complaining about all of these inquiries, worth remembering when they came to office in 2013, they held two royal commissions, one into the pink bats disaster, another into the trade unions. That put Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd, Bill Shorten on the stand. So look, they're getting a bit of their own medicine. Anthony Albanese did, however, promise to change the tone of politics and have a more positive approach to these things. But I think with both of these issues, he clearly feels that it needs to do it.
Okay, this time next week we'll be knee-deep in the Jobs Summit, and this week we saw lots of pre-summit manoeuvring, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. Look, the main aim of the summit, of course, is to boost productivity, boost wages, and the manoeuvring from the business lobby is all about we've got to get more workers in, boost skilled migration. They're desperate to do that. We all know there are shortages when you're catching a plane or trying to grab a takeaway meal. You'll notice that there are great staff shortages everywhere. The unions, though, and the controversial idea that Sally McManus from the ACTU's put forward this week is the idea of multi-employer bargaining.
Yes.
But in particular sectors, so care sectors, aged care, child care, small business as well. Now, the big business lobby have slammed this